This is the Van Rysel RCR Replica, the World Tour bike that the AG2R team have been using for the last season. We're going to give it a full rundown on the specs and then a little bit my own personal experience of what it's been like to ride for the last week or so. Guys, welcome back to the What Life. Let's roll. So before I hit you up with anything that's a little bit subjective about how I have found the bike, let me give you some of the stats, because this is quite unique. This is the AG2R Van Rysel Replica, so it only comes in this exact spec. What do I mean by that? I'm going to break it down for you now. So the RCR Replica is actually unique for a couple of reasons. It uses the same frame as the RCR Pro, which you can actually get in various different configurations in terms of wheels and group set. The RCR Replica comes in one very specific setting. If you want this coloured frame, the replica version of the AG2R team, then you have to get it in the Dura Ace spec, Swiss side wheels with the GP 5000s, and it comes with tubes. What makes this unique is the fact that it uses a one-piece bar and stem, and then other than that, other than the top quality group set you get with it, it's very similar to the RCR Pro. Now I know what you're thinking, Max, you're a bit of a SRAM fanboy, so what are you going to do if you want this bike? Well, the simple answer is I actually can't get this bike if I want it in a SRAM setup. What they do offer you though is the RCR Pro top range red version, so you can get the SRAM red, but you can't get it in the AG2R frame. So you get the same integrated bar and stem, but it comes with zip wheels and obviously the SRAM red group set. You can't get the frame painted in the AG2R Replica colors, but it does come in a really nice green that I saw that when I was in store that I actually thought was, well, it looked amazing. So let's dive into the particulars of this actual bike that we have right here. This is a size medium, and that's interesting because I'm just under 6 foot. I'm 182 centimeters tall, so I'm 1 centimeter below 6 foot. I know what you're thinking, why not just say you're 5'11"? But when it comes to bikes, millimeters matter. And I'm riding a size medium, and typically I've always ridden a size large or a 56 frame. And this is interesting because when I was fitted for a factor bike, I could choose between riding a 56 or a 54, and I found the 54 more enjoyable. And this is a similar thing with the RCR Replica. It has a nice long top tube. Obviously, the bike itself rides low and long because of the frame dimension. So I'm riding a size medium with a 55 top tube. My saddle I have moved to the center of the seat post, and then I think this is 110mm stem, 38mm width. And for me, that feels incredibly comfortable. Okay, so what's the downside of that? The downside, I guess, might be this, is that I have a little bit of a stack on my stem. Not the worst thing in the world. You know, if you are someone that likes to slam a stem, that would have been more difficult for me to sit into. So as a bike, it rides like a fast, aggressive, low-riding bike, which, if that's what you're looking for, because it is a World Tour bike, then you're in for a treat, because I've got a few more things to tell you. It rides nice and firm, and also the handling has been, in my opinion, pretty great. And the reason I think that the handling is so good is because of this. The front fork is just so responsive. It feels like every time you turn it, there is very limited flex to it. Everything coming up through the head tube, connecting up to the stem, and obviously the front fork feels nice and firm. So for me, being a little bit lower, having that firmness through the front fork, I just felt like it's handled very well. And then when I'm descending, it's just made me feel a lot more comfortable. Guys, I am not a World Tour rider. I can't handle any bike, so I feel these sensations a little bit more. If I feel a little bit sketchy on one bike, I can tend to find that if I'm riding another one, how that feels and the sensation I get from that. And this is my personal experience. This bike filled me with more confidence taking corners because I felt like the front end was nice and firm. So the RCR Replica only comes available with the Dura Ace group set. It's not something we're going to dive into too much today because I'm not sure it's something that you can attribute to the quality of the Van Rysel guys. But I will say that it definitely adds to the sensation of riding this bike. And me being a SRAM fanboy, I found diving onto the Dura Ace group set, it just works, it feels nice, every shift is just, it's lovely. So that has been a nice attribute to throw on top of the £9,000 price tag that this will set you back. Before I take it out for a ride, the one thing that always gets brought up is the quality and value of this bike. It's not the cheapest bike on the world tour, but it's certainly up there. It has a £9,000 price tag for the Dura Ace version, which is the one you see in front of you, the replica version. But it's also a £9,000 price tag for the SRAM version, which you can get with exactly the same build, except for the frame color is slightly different. The final thing to say before we take it out for a ride is that this is a BB86 press fit bottom bracket. So if you are running the SRAM version, you come into the age-old problem with a larger axle radius and a slightly smaller bearing radius. This, obviously being Dura Ace and the slightly smaller axle of the Shimano group set, makes it a little bit more amicable. But still, the thing that kind of surprises me with a top-end World Tour model is that it comes with both the standard SRAM bottom bracket and the standard Shimano bottom bracket. They're not upgraded to anything that's anything particular. I don't even think that they are ceramic bearings. You get the very standard bottom brackets that come with the group set. You might be thinking, well, there's nothing really wrong with that, and in some senses I do kind of agree with you. But I think if you're going to take an expensive frame and a very expensive group set, you probably want to connect the two together with something that's really high quality, because it does add to the feel and ride of the bike itself. So now we've got to the bit where I get to tell you about what I think of the bike. And this is a little bit subjective, but I like to think it's based on facts, or certainly the facts of the bike. Obviously, the geometry of the bike being long and low means that there is no way I could slam this stem. Everything from my hip position down to the pedals feels awesome riding a size medium as someone that's just under 6 foot tall. But if I was to slam the stem on this, I think I'd be in a world of trouble. But that's not to say that the position that I'm in at the moment isn't really nice. I just know that I would never be able to slam the stem on this, especially riding a size medium. I'd literally feel like my hands are touching my toes. I don't have the mobility for it. So I'm always going to have to ride a size medium with a slightly higher stack height. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, just get a large then. I guess I could, but that would extend the top tube again. And also, the biggest change between each bike when you change frame size is the height of the head tube. Effectively, each time you go up a frame size, you get higher up in your riding position. And that's one of the key characteristics of this bike, is the handling of it, because you are lower and more stretched out. And combine that with this nice front fork, you can front brake into corners and it still feels great in terms of handling. I'm not talking about World Tour performance here, guys. We're talking about normal guy who can hold, we're gonna say, just under 4 watts per kg riding this bike. And that's how I feel. I can turn into corners, brake, well, not too hard obviously on the front brake, but it still feels like you have a ton of control because of the way this bike is set up. And I like that. That's why I think I would favor riding the size medium. Okay, so let's pick this bike apart. Bottom bracket. I kind of don't understand why they've gone with the BB86. To me, it does affect the ride quality, as I said before. You know, combining a nice expensive frame with a top of the line group set, I would just quite like the best possible characteristics to combine the two. And that's maybe not a BB86. You want a threaded, kind of maybe a T47 or something. Give yourself a bit more of a wider diameter. Perhaps not such an issue on the Shimano, but if I compare this to the Factor that I rode, that has a T47 bottom bracket. There is a slight difference in that feeling. I don't care what you say. It definitely feels slightly different. Riding a Factor on a 1% gradient with that ceramic speed bottom bracket, Dura Ace group set, just magical. Not quite the same sensation, and that I think is a consequence of the BB86. So next up is the front end of this bike, the one-piece bar and stem. As we all know, Van Rysel is owned by Decathlon. I'm not sure you can actually stipulate stem length, bar width, which ultimately means that you are buying a £9,000 bike and locked into the particulars that you get given. Very much the same with the wheels, actually, having mentioned that. The RCR Replica comes with the Swiss side wheels, GP5000s, and for some reason, if you get the Replica version, they put tubes in. If you get the SRAM version, then that comes tubeless with the zip wheels, but obviously not in the Replica paint. It's a bit of a funny one. Not sure how I feel about it. £9,000 is no small chunk of change, and realistically, you know, I'd like a bike that I can just pick up and is perfect for what I want. That includes stem and bar width. The RCR Replica has a frame weight of 790 grams with a claimed full build weight for the Dura Ace of 6.9 kg for a size medium frame, which is what I'm riding. But how is that weight distributed? If you remember, I did a review for the Factor Ostro VAM, and I definitely said that I found that it was distributed a little bit more so that the weight was at the bottom of the frame, and I found that moving the bike around was a lot more enjoyable for that specific reason. With the RCR Replica, it feels like it's a bit more evenly balanced, which I think just changes the handling very slightly. So in essence, don't quite get the same sensation when moving the bike around a bit. Obviously, this is my own personal thoughts, and it was just something that I quite enjoyed about the Factor Ostro VAM. And with this bike, it's just ever so slightly different because it feels like, you know, it's pretty evenly weighted top to bottom. So where do we think that the money saving comes in? Obviously, Van Rysel owned by Decathlon, which is a huge corporation, so they have the ability to kind of make these products a bit more cost effective, I guess. That is a complete guess, just conjecture, but my thoughts. But certainly the one-piece bar and stem that they use for the Replica model and the top-end SRAM Red model is nice. Doesn't quite have the same feeling as the black ink version that you get with the Ostro VAM, but you still get a really nice ergonomic feeling to it. Bit of a funny top cap to it, but I'm not going to complain. You know, I still think it does an excellent job and feels pretty good. Okay, so a couple of questions. What is it like to ride? And also, what's it like riding a team bike? Couple of very good questions. You racer boys are going to be happy to hear it's nice and firm. We've obviously spoken about the front end, but the seat tube is D-shaped to make it more aerodynamic. The top tube tapers off into the seat post, which adds to the aerodynamics, but also makes it a little bit firmer. Certainly that D-shaped seat tube does anyway. What's it like riding a team bike? I'm a bit indifferent about it because obviously I'm about as far away from a World Tour rider as you can get, but I do like nice bikes. I thought I'd have a few more concerns about it, but the nice thing about riding the Replica is it's a really great talking point. Everyone wants to pick it up, have a look at it, and ask you questions about it when they see you at a ride, which I actually think is quite nice. Kind of draws you into the culture a little bit. I'd probably suggest not wearing the AG2R team kit though whilst riding around on it. As to the stylings of the frame and how it looks, I'm going to leave that up to you. You know, that's totally on you whether you like the styling of the Replica itself, but it's certainly worth checking out the top-end SRAM Red model with the either bare carbon look or their green painted frame, because they both look very, very awesome. So let's sum this up for you then. It's a £9,000 low, fast, firm race bike I definitely couldn't slam it because of the geometry on the bike, riding a size medium. I probably could go up to a size large and change a few of the positions on the seat and the front end of the bike, but then I think that might end up affecting the handling, or certainly the way that I would find it handles. The bottom bracket is obviously a BB86. Nothing wrong with it. Lots of people have ridden them for years and years and years. But, you know, are there better options available? Is it something that you'd want to upgrade or change at any point? I'll leave that up to you to decide, but I can't help but feel that for a World Tour bike, you know, giving yourself the absolute best is probably what you might be looking for. So what about the whole package? If we take everything, what the bike feels like, what it's like to ride, the ethos of the brand, how well AG2R have done, Van Rysel itself, what do we think? I mean, I like it. I wouldn't say it's the underdog, because Van Rysel, obviously owned by Decathlon, is a very big brand and they put a lot of money into it. So it'd be hard to refer to that as an underdog. But they've had some tour wins, and undeniably, you know, the performance of this is underwritten by the results that the guys have been getting. So that in itself bolsters its reputation, I should imagine. I've liked it. I've enjoyed turning up to group rides and people talking about it and giving them my personal opinion on it. So I wouldn't describe Van Rysel as the Hollywood of the World Tour peloton. Probably leave that distinction up to a few other brands. But I think Van Rysel have done very well in marketing themselves and creating a very good reputation, not just with the bike that they have built themselves, the RCR Replica, and the other models that sit below it, but also just the brand ethos. I think they've moved into the space very well. They haven't tried to create a product that is super expensive and, dare I say, out of touch with the cycling community at large. And that's kind of been the nice thing about this bike. It feels like you are getting very high quality, but you're not getting your eyes absolutely pulled out to pay for it. And I don't think you can argue with that really, because the quality shines through in the bike. You know, nice handling, nice everything really. I wouldn't go as far to say that it screams top end premium, because that's when I think all the small little details really do start to count. But I don't think you need top end premium of all the small minute things when you just build one thing that works really well. I hope that makes sense, because I want you guys to understand that I like this bike. I think I'd struggle slamming it, but other than that, I really like this bike. So it's probably a bit late to say it, but I don't own this bike. It's kindly been lent to me by Van Rysel so that I can ride it for a few weeks and make a review on it. But I'd love the opportunity to take it to a race. A, to see what it's like to turn up and ride it and what that actually feels like. But also, you know, the obvious of how it performs. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do, and I'd love to take that and have that experience. So I hope this has been useful. If anyone has any questions, please do fire them over to me, and I'll obviously do my best to try and help you out, especially in terms of things like geometry and the type of riding that you might want to use it for. Always happy to chat it through. Thanks for joining in today, guys. I hope it was a useful one. I'll see you on another one soon.